Former NFL star doesn't hold back on Shedeur Sanders, Ravens rumor. Even though Shedeur Sanders hasn't played a single snap through the first 2 weeks of the 2025 season, he manages to dominate the headlines. The Cleveland Browns selected Sanders with the 144th pick in the draft. The Colorado product had an inconsistent preseason, completing 58.6% of his passes in the preseason for 152 yards with 2 touchdowns. He ultimately lost the backup quarterback job to Dillon Gabriel, who completed 67.6% of his preseason pass attempts for 272 yards with 1 touchdown and an interception. Prior to Cleveland's Week 2 game this past Sunday, ESPN insider Adam Schefter revealed that Sanders received interest from the Baltimore Ravens during the draft. They actually wanted to select him with the number 141 overall pick, but he didn't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson. Sanders knew that Jackson, a 2-time MVP and one of the top players in the league, was not going to be losing his job as Baltimore's starting quarterback anytime soon, Schefter said. So, the message was conveyed to the Ravens that Sanders did want to be drafted by Baltimore and preferred to end up in a place where he might have a better chance to play sooner. The Ravens instead drafted offensive lineman Carson Vinson with the 141st pick. Did Shedeur make a mistake? On Tuesday's episode of First Take, former Carolina Panthers quarterback Cam Newton offered his thoughts on this report. He thinks Sanders would have been in a much better situation in Baltimore. If I'm Shedeur, you would ideally want to learn behind a guy like Lamar Jackson for this particular reason and this particular reason only. Not a lot of players can really cope with your star power, with your stardom, right? And let's really give credit where credit is due. At 28 years old, being a phenomenal athlete, the thing that I respect a guy like Lamar Jackson the most, we've never heard him have any off-the-field issues, Newton said. He's been a stand-up guy, and all of our opinions have always led to his on-field performance. Not a lot of people can relate to what Shedeur Sanders has been through in his whole life, and that right there serves even more to make him a better player, because it's the totality of the position. And I think Lamar Jackson would have been able to relate to him in many ways. It's hard to argue against Newton. As of right now, it seems like Sanders is buried on the depth chart for a team that could be in the market for a new coach and general manager in 2026. If that's the case, his roster spot could be in jeopardy. The NFL world has rarely been shy about opinions, but every once in a while, a retired star shakes the conversation with a blunt, unfiltered take. That's what happened when a former NFL great decided to weigh in on the rumor storm swirling around Shedeur Sanders and his supposed resistance to the Baltimore Ravens during the 2025 draft process. The storyline was already dramatic enough: an emerging rookie quarterback, son of Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, allegedly maneuvering his way out of being drafted by the Ravens. Add in Lamar Jackson's long shadow in Baltimore, a franchise that prides itself on loyalty and grit, and you've got a perfect recipe for controversy. But when the ex-star spoke, the temperature of the room spiked. The rumor that sparked a fire. The story first emerged in whispers. Shedeur Sanders had no desire to play behind Lamar Jackson, no matter how prestigious the Ravens organization might be. According to insiders, he wanted to start immediately, not sit on the bench in Baltimore as Jackson's insurance plan. That's when a former NFL quarterback, let's call him the veteran voice, decided to break the polite silence that most analysts were keeping. "I don't care if your last name is Sanders," he said during a fiery podcast appearance. "If you're a rookie in this league, you don't get to pick and choose where you start. The Ravens? That's a first-class organization. To turn your nose up at that? Man, that's bold, maybe too bold." The comments went viral instantly. Clips flooded X, Instagram, and YouTube with captions like "Ex-NFL star roasts Shedeur" and "Respect the Ravens." Why the words stung. It wasn't just the criticism. It was who was delivering it. This wasn't a talking head who never laced up cleats. This was a guy who had been through the wars of Sunday football. He'd taken hits, held clipboards, battled for starting jobs, and clawed his way through the politics of NFL locker rooms. When he said, "I'd have killed for the chance to sit behind a guy like Lamar Jackson and learn," it carried weight. The league respects veterans who've lived the grind. That's why fans started debating furiously. Was Shedeur being entitled, or was he simply standing firm in his confidence? The other side of the coin. To be fair, Shedeur Sanders hasn't been afraid to bet on himself. From Jackson State to Colorado to the NFL, he's walked a path built on both faith and swagger. Deion Sanders raised his sons to chase greatness, not mediocrity. Supporters of Shedeur pointed out that he didn't want to be a backup, and that should be celebrated, not ridiculed. Quarterbacks with real confidence don't want to hold a clipboard, one analyst said on a national broadcast. That's the mentality you need if you're going to lead a franchise. Still, the former NFL star wasn't swayed. Confidence is one thing. But disrespecting a Super Bowl contender before you've thrown a pass in the league? That's not confidence, that's arrogance. There's a difference. Ravens fans take it personally. Baltimore is a proud football city. Tough, blue-collar, with a love for defensive grit and loyalty. When news broke that Shedeur may have intentionally avoided the Ravens, the city's fans felt slighted. "You don't want to be here? Fine. We don't want you either," one fan wrote online. Bars in downtown Baltimore were buzzing with the same sentiment. Why turn your back on Lamar? Why turn your back on a team that competes every year? That fan reaction only amplified the ex-NFL star's critique. He became the unofficial voice of Ravens Nation, saying what fans were already thinking: Shedeur had disrespected the Shield. The bigger picture. Beyond the chatter, the debate raised a much larger question about the modern NFL. Do young quarterbacks have too much power before proving themselves? The old-school mentality said you earn your stripes, learn the game, bide your time, and when your chance comes, you seize it. But the new generation of QBs? They're brand-first, outspoken, and unafraid to make demands. The former NFL star summed it up with one last cutting line. "This league doesn't owe you anything. You've got to earn your way. And sometimes that means holding a clipboard before you hold the spotlight." Shedeur's silence. Interestingly, Shedeur Sanders hasn't fueled the fire. He stayed mostly quiet, focusing on adjusting to life with the Cleveland Browns, where he's expected to push veteran Joe Flacco for the starting job sooner rather than later. Some see that silence as maturity. Others think it's calculated. Why give the story more oxygen? But his father, Dion, has dropped hints of support. Coach Prime has always told his kids, bet on yourself, stand tall, and don't let anyone dictate your future. It seems Shedeur is following that advice to the letter. What happens next? The real test won't come from debates on podcasts or social media. It will come on Sundays. If Shedeur thrives in Cleveland, if he puts up big numbers and shows he was right to carve his own path, the criticisms will fade.